Welcome to Unlock CX, the podcast where we explore innovating customer engagement, brought to you by Anywhere 365. We'll be talking with industry experts about great strategies that create memorable customer experiences. And now, let's unlock this episode. Welcome to this episode of Unlock CX. And Elize, I'm not sure if you noticed, but I'm really looking forward to this one.
I've noticed, definitely. I see the enthusiasm all over your face.
Good. So today we have a scientist, a researcher, a psychologist, and one of my longtime tutors, actually, someone who's taught me all about customer experiences. I'm very happy to have you here, Rijn Vogelaar.
Yes, pleasure to be here. Thank you.
Yeah. Remember those good old days where we were talking about customer enthusiasm in the Superpromoter Academy?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So let's get things together. So he was your teacher?
Yeah.
Ah, that's nice.
It was. Yeah, so we'll dive into that later about our history together. I think it's good. So today we'll be talking about NPS, one of the metrics that is used a lot to say something about how happy your customers are. I know that there's been a lot of discussions around NPS and the value of it. And in my perspective, you've brought, I'd say, new life to the value of NPS. Can you share something about why did you think about NPS in the way that you did? And maybe you can elaborate a bit on how you see the value of NPS.
Can I, sorry.
Yeah, sure.
Maybe it's good also because I'm a bit new, right? I mean, I've only been in this business for 1.5 years now. What is actually an NPS? What does it stand for?
Rijn?
Yeah, so the NPS is a metric based on the question, would you recommend this product or service to your friends or colleagues? And then you take the scale, which is from 0 to 10. The 9s and the 10s are called promoters, and all the scores below 7, so 6 and below, are detractors. And the metric is calculated by detracting the detractors from the promoters. So say you have 40% promoters and 20% detractors, then the net promoter score is 20. And I was really impressed by this score because, the question was not, at the time I was a CEO of a market research agency, and the question was not really something new because we asked this question, would you recommend this product? We asked that for 20 years, I think, as an industry. Mm-hmm. But the way this metric was built was different. So suddenly the 9s and the 10s became very important. And that was actually the thing that attracted me the most. Because I thought, whoa, a 9 and a 10, especially in the Netherlands, when you give a 9 or a 10, then there's something's happening. And I would say you are enthusiastic. So I was impressed with that, and that actually started to inspire me to do more research on especially those 9s and 10s, and that's where my journey towards the Superpromoter started.
Yeah, because for those who watch this on YouTube, this is the book this is the Dutch version that Rijn wrote, the Superpromoter, and it's all about the power of enthusiasm, right? But originally, the NPS was basically just the outcome of the NPS questionnaire is just one number that companies report to their boards or to their investors, right? So what made you think about taking a completely new angle to the value of NPS?
Yeah, I think there were a couple of reasons. Well, first of all, I was a bit disappointed how a lot of companies implemented the Net Promoter Score. I just read the new book of Reichelt, the inventor of the Net Promoter Score. He's a Bain consultant who invented this metric. And he was actually disappointed about this as well, is that a lot of companies just implement it as another satisfaction metric. It's just like, see which people are dissatisfied and then act upon the problems.
Yeah.
And then punish the employees who do something wrong. And that's actually how most people do it. And then it's an enthusiasm killer. It's easy to kill enthusiasm when you just punish your employees. So I was really interested in the 9s and the 10s. So that's why we did extra research on those 9s and the 10s. And then divided those group into the enthusiasts and the enthusiasts who really share, and then the enthusiasts who actually also influence other people.
Yeah.
So there is a small percentage, or maybe for some companies it's a larger percentage of customers who are so enthusiastic that they bring in other people for you, which is also the promise of the Net Promoter Score. Actually, that's I think one of the reasons Reichelt made up this metric. But when you implement it as another dissatisfaction operational system, which tries to find the problems and solve them, which is obviously also something you need to do, but then the promoters will not get any attention because they are already, you have completed them. They are satisfied.
Yeah.
But my idea was, it's very worthwhile to dive into this positive part of this metric. I mean, you can even use other metrics. I mean, I'm not so much, for me, Net Promoter Score is not a religion. I mean, you can use other metrics as well, but then use the 9s and the 10s, or if you're a 5-point scale, use the 5s to dive into this enthusiasm, because people will give you, if they are rating it at the positive end of the scale, there is something happening there.
Yeah.
And when you dive into that, then you go into a world of richness and inspiration that I've been investigating for the last 13 years.
Yeah. Cool. Because I wanted to ask you, Elize, because I can imagine, like, I've experienced in like being a customer of like banks, or like going to like my car dealer. People, like, have you ever experienced that people would ask you like, hey, you're going to get a questionnaire, but please fill in a 9 or 10 because otherwise I'm getting fired? Or
no, I not otherwise I'm getting fired, but I've had, of course, the question. I don't know if it was Ziggo or it was something else, but they said, yeah, you're gonna get this questionnaire, and I think I helped you correctly, right? Like, okay, implying what I should answer, but I've had it, and of course I feel guilty if someone would say I'm getting fired, but I've never heard that one. Luckily,
right?
And and this is really killing the system. So like if you're manipulating the system like this, which happens, it's not the fault of the employees; it's the fault of the system.
Yeah.
Like if the management punishes employees when they have a low NPS score, then they will start manipulating the system. So when you use it as an enthusiasm generator, and you just give back the very positive feedback from the people who have solved problems, then people become enthusiastic and will solve more problems instead of only punishing the people who do something wrong.
So I have a question, because you say a lot of times you say use, and how would you then use it? Like how could you use them?
Well, I would say that, I always promote the double loop because in the Net Promoter system you have the feedback loop system. So you ask a question and then you have to do something with it, which is something that's obvious maybe, but a lot of the time there's just a system. People look at it and there's no action. So you have to do something with it. But if you only act on the negative side, which you sometimes have to do, if there's a problem and customers are suddenly complaining about something, you have to take it seriously, obviously. But if you only do that, then you have like a one loop system, a negative loop system that only focuses on the problems. And I would promote a double loop system. So still you have to focus on some problems, but also make sure that you learn from the enthusiasts. Why are people giving a 9 and a 10? Something special happened. There's something above their expectations. So when you learn from that, then you start to learn which employees are doing something special, which products are really enthusiastic people, and even learning which problems you solved excellent. No, you didn't solve them from a 0 to a 6. Now you solved something from a 4 to a 9. So something special happened there. And when you give that back to the employees, then they suddenly realize, okay, if I solve a problem like this, then people will not only be okay, then they will be really surprised and satisfied and enthusiastic, and I really enrich their lives, as Reichelt would put it. So, and then people become motivated to help another customer in the same way, which is a positive energy. It's
almost like a virus, right?
Yes.
I know. So Elize, for people who don't really know Elize, but Elize is one of the most enthusiastic people that I know on this whole earth ever. But I mean, being around enthusiastic people makes you enthusiastic, right? So it's also like we're going to talk about Flame, Flow, and Flood, the trilogy that you wrote. But it's also like the snowball effect of enthusiasm. Just like there is a snowball effect of let's say the super detractors, like people just drawing each other down. But we need more people like Elize who are like super enthusiastic about.
Oh, thanks.
Absolutely. It is something called emotional contagiousness in psychology. So most of the emotions are very contagious. So positivity can be very contagious, but if somebody's very negative in the room, this is also having a large effect. But especially on the enthusiasm side. I mean, in my scientific research, we have found that enthusiasm from an evolutionary perspective is like the emotion that actually gives you the energy to go for your goals. And so, for example, a monkey sees bananas and he becomes enthusiastic and he starts shouting and jumping around and then he goes for the bananas. He catches the bananas, because otherwise, if he would just be happy, he might lay in the grass and think, okay, well, beautiful bananas, but I'm not going to do anything with it. So people are activated, but not only that, because he's shouting and jumping, his other tribe mates see, okay, there are bananas. Let's go for the bananas together.
Yeah,
and that's what you want to realize, I think, as a company, is that your employees go for customer centricity, go for customer enthusiasm together. Let's do this together, and let's do this in a positive way.
Yeah, but also I remember from what you taught me that those super promoters, those very enthusiastic people, when they get mad, like when you really disappoint them, that's also like that's maybe even more of a problem for your organization than when people who are already not super happy. Like, can you elaborate more about how that works?
Yes, because I think when you think about this theory, you will think about your strategy differently as well. Because also on the dissatisfied customers, there are different groups. Some people are just fan of the competition. So I live in Rotterdam. So if you're a fan of fine art, you will never become a Ajax fan. That's just the way it is. So it's not worthwhile for Ajax to do marketing or recruiting with fine art fans. I think it's the same with Coca-Cola and Pepsi. And sometimes you're a fan of a brand, and that's okay. You can't please everybody. I always give the example of U2, the rock band. You know, like at one point they sold the most albums in the world. 1 out of 3 people in the world had a U2 album. Still 2 out of 3 didn't have a U2 album. Is that a problem? No. No, you have a big audience. You don't have to please everybody. But so you want to have a strategy where you have like something special compared to your competitors. Yeah. And you want your customers to become enthusiastic about that idea. And I don't care if it's your why or your mission or your flame, as I would call it. That's your core idea. That's what you want to bring to the world. Yeah. And you want to create enthusiasm on those aspects. And your super promoters, hopefully, will give you that story back. Focusing on that, you want to know if those super promoters, those people who are absolutely really enthusiastic about the thing that you are doing in the world, you want to please them. If they become dissatisfied because you're going in towards a different strategy, or you're making bad profits because you're making money on something that they don't trust, or you're in the news in some kind of bad way, then they will knock on your door and say, oh, what's happening here? I'm telling all my friends that you are such a great company. And now suddenly I read this, or I experienced this, or one of my friends experienced this. Yeah. I mean, get your act together. I mean,
I remember one example that you gave in the Superpromoter Academy, where there was a beer brand who used to do commercials on TV with like a group of friends. There were always 3 friends, and they were like, and then all of a sudden they changed their advertising strategy into like a new format. And actually their fans, if I remember correctly, they called them, or they wrote them letters like, guys, what are you doing? You need to bring those friends back together. And actually they did. Yeah. So it's like the fans influence even like very operational things like an advertising strategy.
Absolutely, yes. I think because the brand at the moment was Amstel beer. What they were listening to their fans, I think, in an appropriate way. I mean, they were testing actually their advertisement on their superpromoters, because if your superpromoters don't like it, they start to talk badly about it because they are influential. And so if they're influential in an enthusiastic way, but they become dissatisfied, they're also very influential. So then the advertisement will backfire.
Yeah, so I was thinking about what you're just saying, and I was totally relating it to my work. So I'm a talent acquisition manager, so I recruit people. And one of our candidates, they didn't make it, unfortunately, but apparently she felt that the experience was so good that she referred someone and said, maybe then this person could work, because I'm super enthusiastic about the culture and all the interviews I spoke to. And I thought, wow. But I also now feel like I must not disappoint now, this person, because otherwise she will also be disappointed in us. And I don't want that. That's, I think, also really related to the promoters in the NPS.
I think this is an important point, because I think your superpromoters are not only your customers, and not only your employees. I mean, they're also people who at one point try to get a job in your company. And how do you treat them? Yeah. I mean, most of the time, people don't even write back when people apply for a job. And you are in one of your most vulnerable states when you're applying for jobs. And if you treat those people well, they can even become your super promoters, as you gave as an example.
Yeah. So when we're talking about flame, flow, and flood, there was another example that I remember, which totally speaks to me because it's a music example. I'm not sure. Do you remember the singer? That there was, I think it was a French chanson.
Yeah, Patrick Bruel. Yeah.
Yeah, and we'll include this in the podcast. Where you can watch what happened on stage. But I think this is an amazing way of your flame, your personal story being told by the people that know you well and are your promoters. But I'm not seeing a lot of that happening in companies.
Can you maybe explain what happened in the video?
Yeah, maybe we can watch it together. But what basically happened is Patrick Bruel was singing one of his most renowned songs, and the audience took over the singing. And that became so loud that he hardly... And some musicians will become angry because, the crowd, gets so noisy. But he actually, you saw on his face, he was enjoying the moment. He was living it. He was like, this is what I'm made for, right? For you guys to sing my song, that's the greatest thing ever.
C'est bien que je l'ai trop dit.
And I can totally relate it actually to Luis Capaldi recently at Glastonbury, where he lost his voice, and then the whole audience sang along, and he was so enjoying that moment. And now actually you could see it everywhere. It was everywhere on the news. I couldn't open one news page and it was there, which is such a positive message as well. And now I think even more people would like to come to his concert. So yeah, I totally understand the flood of that enthusiasm.
Excellent example. Yes, I love that too. Yeah.
Yeah, but I'm not seeing a lot of that happening in companies. Maybe I'm a customer of the wrong companies, but can you give examples of real life examples of companies where you see, hey, they're doing this amazing thing and their customers take over?
maybe quickly explain maybe the flame flow flood concept, because I love music as well. I love to go to concerts, and I try to play a little bit myself, but it's not good enough yet. But so the flame is when you listen to music, or you're inspired by music, or maybe you're 14, 15 years old, you're a musician, you listen to jazz for the first time, and that's your kind of music, and so your Olympic fire actually goes on, and maybe you start to devote your life to that kind of music. Then the flow is when you start playing together with other musicians, which, if you're a musician, know that this can be a supernatural moment already. You got the feeling that you become one organism.
Absolutely.
If you reach a harmony, and the flood is when the crowd goes wild. Just like in the Patrick Bruel example, that suddenly the crowd is singing your song, or or the energy. You become one organism together, almost, with the crowd. Which is almost a supernatural experience, even if you're one of the persons in the crowd. And I think this is, and why does this work in music so well? I think because a musician, almost by definition, is giving his soul, is giving emotion, everything, is vulnerable, is showing his love life, is telling vulnerable stories, and then the people, obviously the band has to be in a harmony, because otherwise it doesn't work. And then the fans, the most enthusiastic fans, are just standing in front of the stage. They have waited for hours to be close to their idols. So, and this is, I think, the natural process of enthusiasm. And so someone is enthusiastic, and he's close to the other people who are also into this kind of music. And then they share the enthusiasm towards the back of the crowd. Yeah. And in a lot of companies, it works the other way around, because they're focused so much on negativity, on problems. Most of the systems in a company are about fixing problems, quality systems, even satisfaction research. Most of the time is dissatisfaction research. Even NPS systems are, if they are treated wrong, implemented in this way. So then the super promoters, the people who are super enthusiastic about your brand or your product, are nowhere to be seen, because they are not in the system. And people most companies have complaint handling. They don't have enthusiasm handling. And what do you do with your most enthusiastic people? And I think some companies are trying to change this, and also try to implement a super promoter strategy. Obviously, in the Netherlands, Coolblue is one of the obvious examples. Apple, Harley Davidson. Those are the examples I think we all know. But for example, a couple of years back, I worked for Vodafone, and I did a series of keynotes for them. And before I started to do that, I did some interviews with employees and with customers. And obviously, Vodafone, like their mission or their flame or whatever, it's about connecting people, which is obvious. So that's not something that's, per definition, something that you get excited about. But what people get excited about is the stories that lie beneath. So, for example, I started to interview employees, and one of the woman working for Vodafone, I asked her, why are you so proud to work for Vodafone? And she said, well, what I really am so excited about is that we have a team of helicopter pilots, that when there's a disaster, or there's like a flood or a hurricane somewhere, then the helicopter pilots fly there, and they make a mobile network so that people, if they still got their phone, they can reach each other. I thought, this is amazing. Wow. I was a Vodafone customer at the time, and I thought, God, I never heard this story. No, and this will never be on the news, because the news is also only about the bad things happening in the world. And you as a company, you will never be in the news unless you overpay your CEO, or you have some other kind of disaster. So. And then I started to do these presentations for the employees of this company. I think I did like 5 or 6 presentations for like a couple of thousand employees and all. And I asked them, who of you know this story? Because we filmed it and we showed it. Only 1 out of 5 of the employees of Vodafone knew that they had this team of helicopter pilots. And then I thought, oh, you work for this company. And then I realized in every company, amazing things are happening almost every day. Not maybe as big as a team of helicopter pilots, but people are enthusiastic. People are enriching customers' life, as the Reichelt is called, every day. But then it's about collecting these stories. You need to collect these stories, because then you get the flame comes alive. It's not about having a mission statement or whatever. Or you can also have that, but it's about collecting these stories, sharing these stories with each other. Even in Vodafone, probably they had like a post on their intranet somewhere, but it's about like starting the Monday meeting. Did you see this hurricane? Which was awful. Did you know that we were there with our helicopter pilots? We actually helped people. If you start your Monday meeting like this, every employee will will remember this. Years afterwards even. So I think it's about sharing stories, sharing those positive stories of those positive things that are happening, and then the flame, flow, and flood. Then I think the natural process will start.
Yeah, that's so amazing. Sometimes it's so I'd say almost easy.
Obvious, yeah. It's not rocket science. Everybody, when I talk to people about it, everybody gets it. Yeah. Everywhere around the world, even different cultures, where you go, everybody gets it because it's in our DNA. Like enthusiasm. I think maybe that this is the most important thing that separates us from AI, but maybe we can get into that as well.
That's because I wanted to find a bridge towards technology, right? So we're now in a let's say in a digital era. Like everyone communicates in a digital way. I think that COVID has spiked a lot of that, or at least it accelerated it. How do you collaborate with enthusiastic customers, or how do you find those customers in the digital era?
Yes, I think it's a very good question. I'm fascinated by all the developments in artificial intelligence and everything. But I think the best way to do this is to combine the strength of humans with the strength of technology. And obviously, the strength of technology is to do repetitive tasks, to find out information and all. And I think that most of the best talents of humans is that we have emotions, that we can connect to other people. I'm looking you in your eyes, at the moment. And that then we have a connection.
Yeah.
So I think customers in the future will become excited when they feel this connection. When they feel this connection with people, and it doesn't always have to be eye contact. It can also be in the way you communicate. And I think certainly up till now, AI doesn't communicate in an emotional way. It doesn't communicate in an engaging way. No. So I think if all the more rational stuff can be done by AI, and at the same time there are humans who can give the emotional sauce above that, I think then we're doing the best of both worlds.
Right.
No, I was thinking about this as well, because I know that AI learns from what we also ask and put in. And I was sending to ChatGPT every time I ask a question, say, hey, hope all is well, or, hope you're doing great, just be kind. And then the response was, well, I don't have feelings, blah, blah, blah. And I said, but I would like you to be kind as well. And this is what I was having a conversation about kindness with ChatGPT, because I felt that it's learning, so we have to stay kind to one another, because otherwise it will be so, I don't know, maybe even aggressive sometimes the responses. But I could go on and talk about this for hours. I think it's super interesting what you're telling us.
When you compare it to music, I think AI doesn't have soul yet. And I think
and it will
that's
never.
What music has soul. And it also implies having flaws. When you listen to electronic music or made by AI, it doesn't have soul because it doesn't have any mistakes.
No,
it's all exactly in the rhythm it should be. Well, if you listen to a normal drummer, it will have not maybe flaws, but there will be things in it that makes it human, dynamic, and that is sometimes it's flaws even.
Yeah.
Miles Davis took his one-take session of the Blue Notes. They were like it started with a flaw, and they just kept it in, and that made it human. So I think it's even interesting to think about how we should celebrate our flaws because that makes us human.
Yeah, definitely.
Right. I want to close off with one question that we always ask our guests for a next episode. Who should we definitely bring to the show?
Yeah, I was thinking about this. I think to a person that would be really interesting, I think, is Patricia de Vlaming, and maybe you've known her as well. She was the one who did. I worked with her on the Superpromoter project at the Volksbank. But after that, she became the the chief service officer of Vida Excel. And now she's like the director of operations at Aon, but also trying to, I think, creating a culture within that company where, the focus on the customer is so important. So I think she's has had a very interesting steps in her career, and that would be an interesting. And she really believes, I think, and I know that in the power of Superpromoters and in enthusiasm within the culture of a company. So she might be interesting for your podcast.
Right, Patricia, we're coming for you. And lastly, I think that it's super interesting also for you as viewers or listeners of our podcast. Rijn has brought some copies from his English version of the book, The Superpromoter. Highly recommended to read. And we have a couple of copies to share with you guys. And the only thing that we want in return is your examples of companies who've made you feel very enthusiastic about their service, about their product. Please comment under, like on our LinkedIn page, under the YouTube episode, under the podcast on Spotify. Let us know your most enthusiastic experiences with companies, and we will maybe send you one of those. Rijn, I'd like to thank you so much for being here. Really loved the talk. Maybe we should invite you back, because I don't feel that we're done talking about the power of enthusiasm.
I can talk for 4 days about this.
He's very enthusiastic in talking about enthusiasm, which I love.
Awesome. All right. Let's agree that we'll pick up on the talk later on. Thank you for listening or watching. Bye. That's a wrap for this episode of Unlock CX, brought to you by Anywhere 365. Did you enjoy it? Leave us a review and share your comments. Oh, and be sure to subscribe as we continue to explore customer engagement strategies that unlock memorable experiences.